to introduce myself, I am Amanda Buchanan, Program Manager with the University of Arizona Center for Innovation, UACI for short. We are hosting this session today in partnership with the U.S. Department of Energy and SBIR, STTR America Seed Fund, which means that we are what they call a power connector within the American-made network. A power connector is a group of organizations that that NREL and the Department of Energy have brought on to support applicants in many different funding opportunities. A little bit more about UACI. We are a traditional incubator out of the University of Arizona, and we serve science and technology scalable startups through providing different resources in people such as mentors and program subject matter experts, as well as access to prototyping labs and facilities. We are home to the Solar Zone, which is a partnership with Tucson Electric Power and is the largest testing and demonstration sites in the US. Again, as I shared, as a power connector, there's many of us in the network that are supporting startups and entrepreneurs and innovators that are working towards developing clean energy solutions. We were one of 17, and and you can see here on the map is a list of all the different power connectors that provide support. For this particular effort in SBIR support, we are working with 4 other power connectors: ADL Ventures, Open Seas, Entrepreneur Futures Network, or EFN, and the Clean Energy Business Network. We are offering many different types of support through workshops and recorded videos, office hours, application review, recruitment. So if you have not, if you're interested in a particular level of support, for example, Open Seas and EFN are providing some budget support, these would be the other contacts that you might want to reach out to. But for today, we're going to be talking about commercialization and building out your commercialization plan that is required as part of your application. And we have with us a seasoned subject matter expert who is on the UACI team, Sonia Vohnout. I'm going to turn it over to Sonia to do a little bit more introducing of herself and her business, but she has been a great resource to many teams in securing non-dilutive funding, especially SBIR as well. So thank you, Sonia.
Thank you, Amanda. And I have like 2 screens on my desk, so forgive me if I'm going like this because I've got one screen showing one part of the presentation, the other. But hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Today, we will be focusing on the DOE's commercialization plan and how to write it. But as far as my organization is concerned, we're a consulting firm. I am a systems engineer by training. Been doing this for a long time, specifically when it comes to the SBIR STTR program, close to 20 years now. And my passion is about commercialization. I've funded companies, I've taken them from idea to market. So this is very exciting and dear to me. For today, we're going to be talking a little bit about the application process, just to make sure that you have the plans there. And then we're going to go into the commercialization plans. Specifically for this funding opportunity announcement, or FOA, you could submit either a phase 1 or a fast track application. So I'll look at both in case you are submitting a fast track. I'll touch on it a little bit, not too much in detail as the general phase 1 components. And then what are some sources of market research and components, and the what it means to have strategic partnership and other funding sources. So as far as the application process is concerned, I always like to talk about this because people wait till the end and underestimate the time it takes. If you haven't done a SAM registration, being that we have probably less than a month for this submission, it's going to be very iffy if you're going to be eligible to submit your proposal. You're going to be submitting through grants.gov on the workspace. So start filling out your grants.gov application process as well. And you will need to be having your SAM registration complete in a UACI. And you did submit by now the letter of intent. Otherwise, if you haven't, you're not eligible to submit a full proposal. And if you did that, you already are familiar with the PAM system. So before we begin, make sure you read the whole solicitation, the funding opportunity announcement from top to bottom. There's many updates. We discussed the updates last week, and there's a recording for that. That's probably one of the reasons that there was delay on the FOA coming out. But there's typically several updates, not as large as this one, in almost every solicitation when it comes out. So make sure that you read it so that you are understanding what these updates are, what the due dates are, the page counts, fonts, margins, where and how to submit, what registrations are required, are you eligible, and follow all the preparations and instructions and understand the evaluation criteria. And if there's any agency contents, should you need to reach out. So before you begin, keep in mind that if you're writing this proposal, typically it takes about 10 weeks, 150 hours. You're going to be registering multiple sites. You need to understand the requirements, learn and understand the mission of each of the agencies, or in this case, the DOE offices. Develop relationships, understand not only DOE, maybe you need to partner with national laboratories, maybe you need to partner with other industry companies. So start building those relationships. Do it now if you haven't started, and make sure that you have a compelling plan, that you have a strong commercialization strategy. You have to understand your budget and your financials, a strong team. You need to have the resources and a good place to develop your project and execute on your plan. You're going to be talking about what you're going to be doing, how you're going to be doing it, why you're doing it, who, where, what, when, how, all those things. And I think I touched on this last time as well. So a typical funding process starts with, doing your basic research and then going through your proof of concept, prototyping, scaling up and manufacturing. And when you're ready to market, you're going to have your sales and distribution channels, where a typical phase 1, phase 2 SBIR program fits is in this proof of concept during your phase 1, where you're going to write a research strategy that proves that your idea at the basic level makes sense and it works. And typically during a phase 2, you're going to be building a prototype or doing some scaling. And so think about it that way. When you're talking proof of concepts, typically TRL level 1 to TRL level 3, or technology readiness level. And then typically on your phase 2, you're going to be developing a prototype and taking it as far as you can and demonstrating it maybe on a relevant environment. But you can see also other sources of funding. In the past, I used to put partnerships more starting after your phase 2 or during your phase 2. But as I thought more about it, I think you have to start developing those partnerships and thinking how you're going to be commercializing typically during that, what's called phase 0. And by the way, DOE offers a phase 0 assistance. If you haven't applied to, I don't know if there's still time, but it's really useful. It helps you do some of maybe your market research, maybe some assistance with developing those partnerships or looking at your proposal. But the sooner you start, the better off you're going to be. Okay. And I believe that having those partnerships early and understanding where your money is going to come from, what you're going to be doing, how you're going to be doing it is going to reduce and help you bridge that valley of death. Valley of death is when you ran out of money and nobody's giving you money. And typically there are funding gaps. So what you want to do is reduce that whole size, right? In depth and in width. And that's where understanding where you're going to be bringing in money from the various sources is very important, right? So again, we're going to be thinking how we're going to be bridging, and I will be discussing a little bit about this towards the end of the presentation today. Okay, so we're going to be leveraging our network. We're going to start early, layering money from various sources. Again, you might have loans, you might have pitch competitions, you might have grants from foundations, grants from other agencies, or government contracts, and you might have investors. That's what I call layering. And do your homework. Understand who your customer is going to be. And in the case, for instance, if you're working with the DoD, are there programs of record or acquisitions programs? Because then you know that there's going to be additional funding available if you demonstrate that your technology works and you've reduced that the level of risk to your customer. If you're working with the DoD, also there's prime contractors. They might become your customer or they might be your partner, and start building those relationships. So leverage your networks. You're going to be requiring strong letters of support or commitment as you move forward, and you will need to include them on your proposal. Make sure you have a strong legal and accountant support, and don't count on only one funding source. Right? Again, it's about layering and reducing your risk. You might not win this solicitation. So where is the money going to come from? So you might be doing some bootstrapping or friends and family, or you're going to be applying maybe a particular subsystem of your technology could be funded by the DOE, and maybe another one by the Department of Defense. So start thinking about this and maybe create a roadmap of here's your whole system. What are the subsystems? When do you need to build these subsystems? How much money are you going to be needing to build them and demonstrate them? And possibly who is going to give you that much money, right? And always ask for help. So what is a commercialization plan and the difference between a business plan? Commercialization plans are very specific to what you're going to get funding for. And you're going to be defining a path to market and what you're going to be having to do to execute on it. When you talk about a business plan, it's a little bit more strategical and more at a company level. All right. Any questions so far? Let me take a look. All right, so Ed has a question. The phase 1 commercial plan describes partnering and customer discovery plans, market fit, but can one expend budget in the phase 1 proof of concept to travel and expend? Yeah, somewhat. Just be cautious. I know that one of the differences that I noticed on the FOA was that you have to attend their grantees conference or whatever it was called. So make sure that you include that. If for proof of concept you require to travel, make sure that in your budget justification you're very clear as to why and who and how much, right? So you've got to build the case, and somehow the story's got to be part of your description on your tasks, if that's going to be important. I hope that answered your question. So moving on, with the DOE's commercialization plan requirements, there's, if you're doing a phase one, it's only 4 pages. And you will have to be talking about the market opportunity, your team, your intellectual property, and revenue forecast. When you're doing a fast track, if you remember from the previous webinar, the fast track is a phase one plus phase two. This one, because you're going to be requesting for phase two funds, you've got to understand a little bit more about your market. Here's probably where that phase zero might have been really important for you if you have not done any market research yet. You've got to really understand who your customer is. And with regards to the customer discovery, I know that DOE has, if you win a phase one, you can participate. It used to be I-Core, and I might discuss it later today on the webinar, but it's phase one or phase something or other. My memory is bad, but I think I have a slide on it. But you will be doing some customer discovery, and there might be budget for some travel there. So your fast track commercialization plan is going to be more detailed for your fast track project. So if you're writing a phase one commercialization plan, it's a mandatory first sentence. Your company name, you estimate cumulative sale revenues of X dollar amounts in licensing revenues of Y dollar amounts over 10 years. So it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to make sense. You've got to be able to prove that those values you have that make sense. Build a spreadsheet, calculate, have an idea of how you're going to generate revenues. And if you've got licensing strategy, how much you're going to make from licensing. And then you move on to start discussing what's your market opportunity look like. So you're going to describe the problem, its urgency. By the way, think of this as a document that stands on itself. Don't expect that, I wrote already the problem on the narrative. I'm not going to write it here. No. And don't put links or hyperlinks. This document has to stand on itself. So concisely describe the problem, why it's important, why it's urgent, who your customers are, who the competitors are, what's your advantage and your value proposition against existing state of the art, and how you're going to address this market opportunity. Are there other opportunities outside of the DOE? So this is kind of what I like to call, or it's called the dual use. So don't expect that DOE is going to be your customer. Most likely it won't. So how are you going to make money? Who's going to buy your product? Right? And how are you going to make money? Are you going to be licensing? Are you going to be selling? Are you going to be having royalty structure? So you've got to understand that. And then I've outlined there some of these questions that I kind of have just discussed. But for instance, do you have a market validation? How big is it? And within that market, who are your customers? What are the customer segments? And if you do that customer discovery, you're going to have a better idea. But hopefully, before you write your phase one proposal, you do have somewhat of a good idea, right? Present your company and team just like you were doing an interview, right? You've got to look strong, and your company and your team should not be looked up as a risk. So be concise again, but describe who your company is and who's going to be working on this particular proposal or project if you were to win. And make sure that the qualifications of the folks working on the project are in par with the task and the research that you're going to be doing. And if you have outside advisors or mentors or other partners, brag about them, right? Because not everybody might have access to really quality advisors or mentors. as you might. Do you have any intellectual property? What is it? In the case of the STTR, it's very important if you're going to be licensing technology from the university or from anybody else, make sure that it doesn't present as a risk. So explain what you plan to do, or if you plan on already submitting for a patent, or if you have patents you're going to be using. And then have an idea of what your revenue forecast is, because remember, the first sentence starts with how much you're going to make in sales, how much you're going to be making in licensing, and it's got to be projected over 10 years. So create a strong a spreadsheet so that you have accurate numbers for that. And don't assume that other people who are going to be reviewing this understand how you're going to be going to market in the pricing. So any assumptions, make those assumptions explicit as you're talking about how you're forecasting these revenues. So for the fast track, it's got to be more details. So here now you have ability to put 15 pages, information in for 15 pages. So typically you're going to be now having a better understanding of what that market opportunity is, who the market players are, how big is your market, what are the market segments, have you hypothesized on a good beachhead market, and again, a strong team, understand what the competitive landscape is and the intellectual property and finance and revenue model. A lot of the stuff I have here, by the way, this is just a really concise summary of a lot of the information that already is available on the FOA. So this is mostly an outline, and I'm just trying to present it here, and we're going to be available for office hours if you have questions, or if you have something you'd want us to review at a very high level, because we're not going to redline it, but we might be able to tell you if you're on the right track or not. And so for market opportunity, describe what product or service, who's your market, who's your target customer, why, do you have an idea of what the price, what are going to be the distinguishing, what's your competitive advantage versus what is currently out there in terms of features. And again, when you describe that market opportunity, understand the size, you know, how big is it, who the market players are there going to be some trends or barriers? So maybe do a little bit of a mini strength weakness analysis and understand how you're going to go to market, right? So describe how you're going to reach that market, how you're going to reach that customer, and how you're going to sell to them. And again, what's going to be that business model. And this is a trend across most of the agencies. What is going to be the societal, educational, and scientific benefits, and be able to make a strong impact with your innovation. For company, what are the origins? Do you have a corporate structure? What's your capitalization? Your revenue history? How many employees? What experience and credentials you might have? And recognize that there are gaps. Because if you don't recognize it and you put, you know, you talk about your company and your team, and we've reviewed your research strategy, and then we notice that you have some gaps either for commercializing or for your technology, and you don't put it here, you know, you probably don't understand your business as well as you should. Typically at this point, if you're early stage, you might not have a strong BD or sales team, recognize that you're looking for one. And as you grow, you might want to bring one in. Understand your competition. When you put here that you don't have competition and you're the first to market and so on and so forth, those are red flags. The first competition you have is status quo. Whatever they're doing right now, you've got to fight that system. Whether they've invested on another solution, that becomes a barrier. How are you going to convince them to ignore the money they've already spent and to replace it with your new technology, right? So you've got to understand that. So don't start the competitive landscape question saying there's no competition, because that's not true. And your finance and revenue model, there's a lot of templates and spreadsheets there that you could use, and make sure that you have a strong here, in your phase one, maybe it's got to make sense. It's got to be close enough here. You've got to be more detail into the numbers and how you arrived into them, and include that pro forma, and be explicit as to how you're going to be raising money, where the money's going to be coming from, how much money you're going to need, and all the assumptions in terms of price and costs and expenses, such as labor. How many people do you think you're going to be needing as you grow? All that comes in very handy when you're doing your pro forma. Okay, any questions at this point? Did we get any more questions? Because I know I'm going pretty fast. Casey, do we have any new questions?
I think we have one from Ed. I don't know if you addressed this one, Sonia. Per the DOE, when does commercialization begin? After phase 2 completion, if awarded, when you have customer 1 buying your products or service, or some other start point?
So I think commercialization is a process that starts the moment, that's how I feel, right? I think commercialization starts the moment you have an idea, right? Everybody might have good ideas, but they might not have customers. So you've got to be able to think about, that's why phase 0, whether it's going to be the DOE's phase 0 or phase 0 for any company, is that initial thought process of who might be my customer. Is there a need? Doing that needs validation is where I would start my commercialization process. And if you have programs like with the DOE and other agencies, whether it's called ICOR or something else, you do a little bit more of this customer discovery, you're going to be understanding more and validating your original hypotheses of, is there a need and who has it, right? And as you move through the stages and maturities of your company, that I don't know, we could call it commercialization stage would be better refined, and you will have increased your likelihood of success. But you probably not even ever done, because you might take a product to market, but then you've got to keep it, maintain it, improve on it, and revise it and re-innovate. So it might become a continuous loop, right? So I hope I didn't confuse everybody, but that might be how I would define. It's always a process. And what activities you're going to be doing for commercialization are going to be different depending on the maturity of your company and the stage of your technology. So I hope that answers the question. I'll take one more before I continue, because I think I have quite a bit more slides.
The next one is, what are the typical award size for phase one and for fast track?
Okay, I'd have to go back to my other webinars, but I'm gonna go off of memory. A typical phase one is gonna be around 200 something thousand, 6 months to 12 months, and your phase two is gonna be typically closer to, or a fast track. Fast track's gonna be gated. If you don't prove feasibility or there's high risk, you're not gonna get the phase two, by the way. So think about your phase, and you're going to be writing a fast track is going to have all the activities for phase one, and then you got to say what you're going to be doing for phase two. And so phase one are going to be about 6 months, 9 months, and phase two you're going to be doing somewhere around 18 months to 24 months, maybe with an extension to 36. And you're going to be looking at about $1 million for phase two. And if I'm wrong, please someone correct me, but I'm going off of memory. But I think that's for the DOE, the roughly the amounts. And okay, so planning processes. And I think we've touched on some of this in the descriptions and with the questions we've had, but think about what is the opportunity? Who has the problem? How large is the problem? How big is that pain point? And who's your target customer in what market? So that's going to help you define the magnitude of the problem and possibly how much money you could make if you have a good market strategy. So who has the greatest need? Who has the best fit to your company, to your product, to your, how fast could you get there? And so there might be multiple customers, but you've got to pick the one that gives you the biggest return the quickest. And then when you're defining that market and understanding how it's segmented and how it grows and what are the trends and the opportunities, then you're going to look at how the total available, the serviceable, and how much is obtainable. And that, when you're looking at that, the reviewers will understand that who's going to be that target customer or that beachhead, and that you're not going to be going for the whole total available market in the universe, because as a small business, you probably won't get. And understand your strengths and weaknesses. I like to create tables here so that you can compare yourself to alternate solutions. And it will help you better describe that product or service. Think about the value proposition. Are you going to be better, faster, cheaper, smaller, less power requirements? What are your unique capabilities? And be able to describe the business model in terms of license fees, royalties fees, service fees, product sales. Are you going to have manufacturing profits? And letters of support, letters of commitment. If you have subcontractors, sub-awardees, you're going to need letters of commitment, explaining exactly what they're going to do for how much. And letters of support is how reviewers are going to understand that you know who your customers or potential customers are, and that you've somehow validated the need. We talked about the DOE Phase 0 application. If there's still time, please apply. Some of the services that they include, and this might vary if you talk to them, they could provide mentorship, technical consultation, IP consultation, some budget reviews. I just pulled out this from some of the description on the website and the follow-up. But please, if you do apply, validate that these are some of the things that you could get assistance for. So when you're talking about partnering resources, we looked at how the process a company goes and some of the funding sources. I took this from the DOE. The other one I created, but this is how DOE would describe some of the partnering resources when you're developing technology for topics that they have listed. So national laboratories, research institutions, maybe you partner with consultants, with engineering support and prototyping and manufacturing. So depending on what stage you're in, you might require different types of partners and different sources of money. These are more awardee resources. So if you win the phase 1 or a fast track, you are eligible to request some of this. For the TABA, you request it on your proposal. So phase 1, $6,500, phase 2 up to $50,000. They used to be the Energy I course, now it's called Phase Shift. So if you win your phase 1, it's a customer discovery and needs validation and business model validation. So make sure, if you can, that you apply for that. If you have phase 2, there's diversity supplements, and you can have phase 2A, B, and C. They're issued as cooperative agreements, and all this information you can find on the DOE website. But these are other sources of direct or indirect funds that can come to your company. So make sure that you understand them. If you have questions, reach out to these emails. Specifically, I've listed these ones as the UACI Power Connector. We're focused on the water and the solar topics. And so these are the emails. So I mentioned TABA for phase 1 is $6,500. For the phase 2, it's up to $50,000. Shameless plug, I'm a TABA vendor, been doing it for years. So if you're interested in talking to me about that, we can take that offline. But this is really important. This is money above what you would get for your technical development and research that can help you towards commercialization activities. For partnering, I like this new DOE SBIR partner platform. If you haven't registered yet, do so. It's really helpful. You're going to see what they funded, who's been funded, and you could look at, you can find partner companies or partner entities as well. And then, of course, partnering with national laboratories. Here's the list of the partner national labs. So do consider that. I highly recommend partnering with national laboratories. If you haven't reached out to them, you do have to build that relationship, and most likely it's not going to be free. So you have to put that in your budget. So you have to start early. A collaboration ecosystem. This is kind of, when we're talking about partnerships, you're the small business, but you can participate in incubators like the UACI. You can also be in accelerators. You can partner with prime contractors or large industry companies. You can partner with federal agencies and national laboratories, with research institutions, or with other small businesses. So this is kind of your collaboration ecosystem. You should not look at yourself as doing this alone, because sometimes you could go to market a lot quicker if you have the right partnership established. And by collaborating with industry, you're going to have enhanced success, a better expertise, because other people out there might have done this, been there, have access to laboratories or technologies or people that you don't have within your company. You might have access to business development through market access through those partnerships. It will make your proposal stronger, and you might be able to innovate a lot quicker. And this is just my representation of what a typical partnership process goes through. And this was mostly thinking when you're working with like a DoD process or with prime contractors like Raytheon or Boeing. But you should be attending networking events. That's how you build your relationships and you identify who you should probably be talking to. Create quad charts so that you can get these letters of support that you could include into your proposals, and include them in your SBIR proposals. Define demonstration projects, which will then, if you're successful, will end up in subcontracting agreements and possibly some partnerships for other funding opportunities like broad agency announcements or other funding opportunity announcements or FOAs through the DOE. You can form mentor-protege programs, which are typically funded by the government. And then maybe if you're really great, they might acquire, or you can have joint ventures. We talked about TABA, we talked about ICOR. There's other transaction authorities. This is another way of getting money. There's the cooperative and research agreements where there's no funding exchange, but it could be a way for you to accelerate your commercialization by proving or demonstrating in a relevant environment. Depending on the agency, there could be matching funds. I listed a few. DOE probably has some through those phase A's, B's, and C's. Mentor protege, partner with primes, and look for other opportunities. Don't just apply for this one. If your technology fits other opportunities out there, diversify and apply as many as you can. Make sure that you do disclose when appropriate that you have applied for something, because it could be relatively the same thing and the government does not like you doing double dipping. And this is just another outline of different sources of support similar to what we just discussed. Summarizing, start early, read the solicitation, follow the instructions, be compliant, start your market research and customer discovery activities like now or sooner than hope you already started. Make sure that you schedule multiple reviews as you build your proposal. Request letters of support early. Some of the companies like to hear about you, they have deadlines. And then they take several weeks to give you a letter. And again, partner early. There's our contact information. More questions?